Welcome to the Peer Support Groups, Why They Work, brought to you by NAMI Cook County North Suburban. We're glad you could join us tonight. I'm Dr. Christine Somerville, Director of Programs at NAMI. For those of you who don't know NAMI, it is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization providing public awareness, no-cost support, and education programs online and in person so that people and families affected by mental health conditions can build better lives. We are a lifeline to individuals and families who don't know what to expect in their difficult life journey. Our programs are free and open to those in our 17 community service area, but we don't turn anyone away who's in need. We run 42 support group meetings each month. Some are for certain populations like veterans or frontline medical professionals. Others are open to anyone. Did I mention that they are all free? After you or your loved one receives a diagnosis, your world has changed. Different therapies and medication can help, but peer support has proven to be effective in addressing feelings of loneliness and isolation. Tonight's program will shed some light on how peer support might just be the best decision you or your loved one makes on your journey in recovery. Tonight we are joined by a panel of our experienced peer support facilitators. Each has a different story for you, and each facilitates a different NAMI group. Some of our support groups are for individuals living in recovery, and others are for caregivers of someone living with a diagnosis. Jan Bloxham is a NAMI support group facilitator and leader. She has been with NAMI for many, many years. She was with NAMI long before I ever joined. She has been instrumental in identifying the particular needs of so many who we serve and is a driver for starting new programs. Alex Kesselring has an MBA and works not only as a volunteer facilitator, but also has administrative responsibilities with us. Tina Nelson is a teacher, a NAMI teacher, and she has a law degree. She has a son who has a bipolar disorder, and her family suffered an enormous tragedy 3.5 years ago. She will talk more about that, I'm sure. Tina has been on the NAMI board for 22 years. And Jennifer Makeley is a NAMI teacher and support group facilitator. She is a marketing manager at a small roofing company in Lake Forest. And she has been married for 30 years and has a 26-year-old daughter who is living in Paris. We want this conversation to be lighthearted and engaging. So we'll start with a poll to learn a bit about you. We will leave time at the end for questions, which you can type in the chat box at any time during our conversation. The question is, have you ever attended a support group? We're going to wait just a minute. 89% of those who are with us tonight have voted. Does anybody else want to vote? All right. So it looks like 77% of those who've joined us tonight have attended a support group and 23 have not. Okay. That's good for us to know. Now, at any rate, so now we have a sense of those of you in the audience who have attended support groups. And that's good for us to know. We're eager to hear about your experience, which we will have time to talk about as we go through and share our experiences with you. So what we're going to do is start talking about our experiences as facilitators. And I think what I'll do is I'll ask the first question, pose the first question to Tina Nelson. So she will be the first to respond, and then we'll move around the room. So the first question is, and you'll have to unmute yourself, Tina. The first question is, how did you first learn about NAMI, and what was the first encounter you had with NAMI Cook County North Suburban?
This is going back many, many years to the 1990s. I was sitting in a meeting at New Trier I mentioned some issues with my son, and the person sitting next to me leaned over and said, "I have the perfect group for you." And NAMI at that time was led by 4 or 5 people. That's it. And so I took the family to family course and attended activities and did activities with as NAMI grew. So I've been here ever since then. And what was your second part of the question?
Well, the second part of the question is what what was the first encounter you had with our
Oh, it was
affiliate?
the family to family class.
Okay.
And we attended there were just 5 of us in my van who attended a mental health. That was it. That was NAMI, outside the family to family class, that was NAMI. And we attended a mental health rally at the Thompson Center. So that was my first encounter.
Okay, great. How about Alex?
Hi. So I actually learned about NAMI in 2017. I was looking for employment services from NAMI Metro Suburban in Oak Park. And I ultimately dropped out of using those services due to a head injury. But that got me connected with NAMI as a larger organization. My therapist suggested to me that I would benefit from peer support. So I checked out the group from NAMI CCNS. That was my first connection. Ultimately, I really liked the peer support group model, and I really liked the people running the groups. So I became a regular attendee.
Great. Jan, what about you?
I think it was a random meeting with another parent. And I'd been to so many hospitals, so many professionals, years of it, and no one had told me the big secret. So I think I called. I went to family to family, and I went to a lunch with just a small group of women sitting around it. Tina was one of them, and one thing that bothered me was that there wasn't anything after family to family, and I felt strongly that and somewhat angrily that there should be a support group, but no one started one, so it was suggested that I do it, and so I did.
And what do you remember when that was? Because I don't know how many years you've been with us, but
It was a long time ago. Yeah, I don't remember it. There was a connections group, and I felt there should be a family support group as well.
Okay, so by the way, for those who don't know family to family, that is the class that we teach, which is 8 weeks long, and it's now running online, and it's underway. We have a class going right now, and we will be having some more. If you are interested, you can let us know and learn more about it. Okay, Jennifer, unmute yourself and tell us, how did you first learn about NAMI, and what was your first encounter with NAMI Cook County North Suburban?
So my partner, my husband, had a psychotic break, and I was desperate for something. I come from a 12-step tradition. I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I love support groups. I think they're so key to people's recovery, but I couldn't find anything for how to support somebody who had bipolar disorder, and I finally came across a support group in Skokie, and it was Jan's support group. I think this was in 2007 or 2008. I don't know. And then someone mentioned at the support group that I should try family to family. And so I took a class, and Tina was one of my teachers, Tina and Julie Savasto. And so after I was hooked, and after that I got roped into being a teacher myself. So I taught family to family for many years, and now I let the new blood do that, and I am a support group facilitator. We at one point there was only a support group like every other week, and it was only in Skokie, and we had people coming from Arlington Heights and Highland Park, and so I thought that there should be more support groups, and every week, and so I'm so glad we've been able to add more and more, but that's why I switched over, I guess.
Great. Okay, so let's go in the same order for the next question. So we'll start with Tina, go to Alex, then Jen and Jen. The next question is, when did you decide to become a support group facilitator, and what drove you to that action?
Well, for me, Jan thought I would be, since my experiences with grief was not directly aligned with NAMI's mission, but it was profound. And Jan thought that it would be good if I sat in as, an auxiliary support group facilitator. And so I did. We get people with many different experiences.
Okay, Alex.
So I decided to become a support group facilitator in January 2019. As I mentioned before, I liked the peer support model, and I really liked the people who were running and attending the group. At the time, we really needed an extra facilitator. Our peer program coordinator at the time asked me if I would be interested in co-facilitating a group, and I just jumped at the chance.
And you never looked back.
And I never looked back.
And we are so grateful. Jan, how about you? When did you decide to become a support group facilitator, and what was the moment in time that drove you to that?
Well, I had been a member of Families Anonymous, which is a support group for families of people with addictions. And they did let me come. My daughter was struggling with, she was developing schizophrenia, although at the time I didn't know what it was, but I wasn't a perfect fit. And when I finally found NAMI and realized I didn't have a support group, then I just really thought we should have a support group for families where the mental illness issues are at the center. And so that's why I really felt, I felt as if I wanted to hear what other families were doing. I wanted to know how they were coping and what was giving them hope and letting them go on. And that's why I just wanted to know other families.
All right, Jennifer.
Well, as I said, I realized, I'm so glad, Jan, that you knew that after family to family, people needed some place to go. Because the best thing about family to family is that structure, and you build a support with seeing those people 12 weeks in a row. But then when it's done, it's kind of like, oh, where do I go now? And so, yeah, I'm so glad you did that. Grateful. But as I said previously, there were not a lot of support groups when I first came into NAMI, and Jan was stretched really thin. I think she used to do one in Skokie and then one in Highland Park, and Jan was our support group person, like, and so it was really, at least on the family side. And so I always pushed in my family to family class at the end when we talk about advocacy. Somebody volunteered to do a support group, and especially Chris. That's how I roped Chris into it. And as you notice, there's not a lot of male faces in this group. And so yay for Chris. I always thought there should be a men's group too. But anyway, and Chris needed some help too. So as I said, I think we really need to have as many support groups as there are days of the week and towns in CCNS, so that we can spread the word and the love.
Yeah, so now that we're online and all of our groups are virtual, it doesn't matter where you live. And also, oftentimes people would go to a support group that wasn't in their community because of stigma associated with it, and they maybe didn't want to run into someone they knew. So, so they would go to a support group outside of their own community, but now they can go to any support group, which is great. So I'm glad that we're doing this virtually, and we'll continue to do it virtually, even when we do return to face-to-face groups. Okay, so now let's move to really talking about your group. I think this is we're getting now into the really the meaty part of this program, and that is those who've joined us tonight would want to know what your group is, what is the purpose of your group, who attends, what kind of people come to your group. So just describe how your group runs, how you operate, because we do have, all of our groups are NAMI groups, and all of our facilitators are NAMI trained. So we do have a certain way of doing things, but each group has its own kind of personality. So it'd be nice for you to kind of talk about what makes your group, unique to your group. So I think we'll go in a different order there. I think I'm going to start with Alex. So tell us your group and everything that we just mentioned.
Okay. So the group that I run is called Connection Recovery Support Group. It's a peer support group for those of us living with a mental illness. I myself have a mental illness, which is why I'm able to facilitate this group. It's open to anyone 18 or older who has a mental illness. Self-identification is perfectly fine. We don't require any sort of a referral from a mental health provider. We don't require that you're participating in formal mental health treatment. We don't require that you have an official diagnosis. Self-diagnosis is okay. It's a drop-in group. You can come when you want and not when you don't. No need to commit to regular attendance. We've had a pretty diverse age span, I would say. Our youngest member so far has been 21, and our oldest participants were in their late 70s. Since we went virtual, we haven't seen as many of our 70 plus participants, which is a shame. But that's the struggle of doing stuff online, I suppose. I'd say that most of our participants currently are in their mid 40s to mid 60s, though we do get some younger people. I would say that our group skews female, but we have male, female, and non-binary participants. We have a range of diagnoses. We have people living with anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia. It's a very, very wide-ranging group in that way. Our participants also come from a diverse places. Obviously, we've got people in Cook County, North Suburban, but we also have a big Chicago contingent. We have people coming in from other Chicagoland communities and other states, and we've even had some people come in from out of the country, which is just amazing to me. So how this group runs. The structure is actually set by NAMI National, and it's something that we follow pretty closely because it's an evidence-based program. First, we welcome our individuals to the group, giving a special welcome to anybody who's new. And at that point, we check if somebody is new, are they over the age of 18? Do they have a mental illness? And if those two are answered yes, then they're in the right place. We go over some encouragements, some disclaimers, mostly noting that we're NAMI trained peers, not mental health professionals. We give some information about additional resources outside of this group. Then we go over our group guidelines and principles of support. The group guidelines spell out how we will relate positively to everybody else in the group. And the principles of support represent what we're striving for, our touchstones, our aspirations, as we struggle to come to terms with our mental illnesses. And this really functions as our belief system regarding universal necessary truths, which guide and strengthen us when life deals us a challenge. After that, we do a 1 to 2 minute check-in. Each person gives their name and a little bit of information about themselves, such as their diagnosis. And then they talk for a minute or two about what brought them to the group, and how they're doing in the here and now. And after we've gone around and checked everybody in, we open up the floor for discussion. This generally means that we give individuals more time to talk about the issues that brought them to the group. However, sometimes we'll moderate a group discussion about common threads each member might be experiencing if that's more appropriate. So, for example, if we get a lot of stories about people who are handling anger, we'll talk about anger and anger management. But usually what we do is give people additional time to talk and offer them support and validation.
Okay. Are you finished with that question? Okay. All right. Let's move on to Jen. Tell us your group, how it's structured, who attends, and how you run your group.
So Chris Gillick that I talked about before, and I facilitate the Evanston Family Support Group on Saturday mornings, every Saturday morning. And it is for family members who are supporting or love someone who is struggling with a mental illness. And we get all kinds of people from all kinds of places. We've had people from Texas and New Orleans. We haven't had any international members. I'm kind of jealous. But so we also have our curriculum is set up by NAMI National. And so we have I don't say rigid, but we are, I think it brings comfort to people to follow structures. And so we do the same things every week. We also, we open our doors about 15 minutes early so that we can chat on Saturday mornings. And that way, if new members come in, we can welcome them and also, find out where they're from and if they've been to NAMI before. The only prerequisite for our group is that you love and support somebody who has a mental illness. So many of the people in our group also have their own mental health issues, but the purpose on Saturday mornings is how we support others who are. So it's not for us to be speaking about our own illnesses. It's for us to be speaking about what it's like to support someone who has a mental illness and how we can do that better. So we also go through group guidelines. We read the principles of support. We go around the room or the table when we were in person and introduce ourselves, our loved one to the group, diagnosis if there is one and we want to share it. And then again, just like Alex said, what brought us here today to the meeting. We like to stay in the here and now, and a lot of times when we get newcomers, they want to tell their whole story, and so we try and keep that beginning around the table as a check-in also, and keep it short. And then we also open it up to a discussion after that. Again, also as Alex stated, if something comes up again and again, frustration with a loved one not wanting to take medication, or we get a lot of people who are in crisis and have no idea what to do. So we talk about things that we hear around the table. Also, sometimes I'll open it up and ask, is anybody going through something pressing that they need help with right now? And so we talk about that. Did I cover everything?
I think so. Yeah. All right. Let's go to Tina next. So could you talk a little about grief and loss, and then Jan will be asked to talk about that too. But from the standpoint of your facilitation of that group, what are you seeing? Who comes to the group? What's the purpose of the group?
I'll talk about who comes to the group. It's a group for people
primarily for people who've lost a loved one to suicide or to drug abuse. And we get, I would say we get quite a few people who fall into that category. We also get people who have lost someone to illness, but they had dementia or it morphed into dementia eventually. And they've had a very hard go of it trying to manage that person. We've had a few people who have had suicide occur in their lives. Not infrequently, we get someone who's had the suicide of a friend, a close friend. Sometimes someone has disappeared for days before they find them. These are all traumatic, extremely traumatic events, and they're grasping for a way to deal with it, to manage their way forward. And sometimes they just don't see a way forward at all. And some of them themselves are suffering from depression or some other kind of disorder. So they're having a very hard time. And it's myself and Jan, and Les is our co-facilitator. Right offhand, his last name escapes me. It's Les. Anyway, he's a very, very good co-facilitator, and he offers a lot to the group. And that's our purpose, is to support someone through the process of grieving. They've already lost someone, and that's a process of grieving. So that's, and I'll let Jan talk about how it's structured and you know. So that they get to, so we don't really, different people offer different suggestions, different processes. I do have a book on grieving here from a hospice group, and I have another book that I have to find that has day-to-day readings to take a person through 1 year of grief. So we're adding that to our hour and a half.
Okay, thank you. So Jan, you can speak both to the grief and loss group and also family support, and probably any other group because you know them all so well, but you're up. So tell us your ideas about all of this, your experience.
Well, we all use the same format because it works, and guidelines, and then we read the principles. With the grief group, it's a little different. We have fewer principles and few but the structure is the same. One thing that's so interesting about support groups, and the grief group is no different, is that we never know who's going to come, and we always enjoy people coming and just getting to know what's going on with them. The grief group, originally, we thought it would be for people whose loved ones had mental illness and died. That was the case for me. My mother had a mental illness. And we knew that there can be special issues when your loved one had a mental illness. Their life is not as easy as maybe other people's, and it has affected you differently. So yeah, and then with COVID, we wanted there to be a place for people who have lost family members through suicide, and we've actually had whole families come to talk about it, and that was neat because they were from different parts of the country, and they came to our support group to sort of talk about what they could do as a family to heal, and that was neat. Yeah, every week it's different, but there are people who are pretty regular attendees, and we love that. They kind of become, we kind of rely on those people because the support group leaders themselves aren't enough to make a group. It really is having just a group of people who kind of know our structure and just they make it happen as much as we do. In fact, I mean, Tina and I always like it when, we do the basics and then the group just unfolds all by itself. And yeah, we look for our common issues that we're facing that week, whatever they are. We try always to prioritize if a person is having a crisis, that we try to address that first. We always try to end with something that something upbeat that each person chooses to take with them for the week. And actually, that was Nancy Sussman who came up with that way to end the meeting. And so I really like it. So so yeah, that's it. It's, to me, it's like a window into the world, and I enjoy it.
Did you want to add anything more to what Jen had said about the family support group, since you run some of those as well, or did she cover pretty much the things that you would say?
Yeah, I mean, what I think is that they just took off on their own. Whenever you start a group, it takes a little while because the word has to get out there within your community. But people, when we started, the second group, the third group, there was always someone who would say, well, isn't that too many support groups? And there are so many families struggling out there. We're never going to have too many support groups. And that has always been true. If you have a support group and you begin to get the word out, people come because it's needed.
Okay, so the next question, and I think what we'll do this time is just instead of my calling on you, just open it up. You can, if you want, you can unmute yourselves and you can just kind of jump in where you want to jump in. The next question is, what are some common issues that you hear about in your group? So anybody can just start and
So I'm going to let Jan, Tina, and Jen go first, because I think that what we discuss in connection might be a little different than what gets discussed in grief and loss and family.
okay.
I would say one of the biggest things that comes up in our group is how can we help somebody who doesn't want help? And how to be respectful and love somebody and allow them to walk whatever path they're it's a really fine line, but we do get that a lot, is someone who, it's really devastating to love somebody who is not able to wrap their head around that they need to take meds, or and for whatever reason, and it's hard to walk that path. And so we talk about that a lot, but how to keep good boundaries, how to be respectful, and allow somebody the dignity of making their own choices, and that kind of thing.
Yes, I agree with Jennifer. It's just it often people are really interested in communicating with their loved one with a mental illness, and attitudes that help. How can we? A lot of times we're overcome with the stigma and the the fear of what's going to happen next, and just it's a relief to meet with people who just want to talk openly about what's going on in their family, and we learn from each other. Everyone comes to the support groups bringing something with them. Usually there's something that you want to contribute and there's something that you want to learn. And so I think in our discussions, we kind of give an opportunity for people to bring those things out. But it's like medication adherence, housing, mental health laws that affect families, what to do in mental health emergencies and how to know that you're having an emergency, Social Security, disability, and SSI, diagnoses, what the different types of mental illness are. Yeah, and it goes on from there. Just everything that you can imagine about families trying to support each other through this. The more, I mean, the thing we know, and we always, it goes the other way too, or we encourage people to go to family because we find that the more we know, the better we can handle our families, the issues in our family.
In the grief group, I think it's a little different. I think that there seems to be a desire to walk through the death of this person and how it happened. And in some cases, there's really no one else for them to express their feelings to, because people around them don't want to get involved with the recovery from death.
Mm.
They would rather not hear about it as many times as it has to be heard. And so in a support group, you can repeat your experience with your loved one, the good things or the bad things, and as many times as you need to. So that's one of the big issues and the big processes in the grief group.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. So is it something you want to add, Alex, or?
Yeah, so running a support group for those of us who are living with a mental illness, it's a little bit different than the type of discussions you would have in family support group. We'll talk about things like the day-to-day challenges of living with a mental illness. A number of people are managing work and school as well, and we talk about how to succeed at that while still working on your mental illness. We talk, of course, about how we've been feeling in the here and now. We celebrate what's going well. We troubleshoot and validate for things that people are struggling with. Of course, we talk about handling our thoughts and emotions, our moods, our mental illness symptoms. We talk about ways to reduce symptoms. We talk more frequently than I would like, actually, about dealing with unsupportive family members or friends. Sometimes our family members and friends aren't very educated, and then it kind of falls upon us to educate them and, figure out how we're going to work together. We talk about sharing and getting access to resources like housing or partial hospitalization programs. Our group members do share information, and we're very fortunate to have Nancy Sussman running our warm line right now, and she has done just a ton of resource finding and case management for us, and it's been fantastic. Along with that, we'll talk about strategies for accessing care, for managing your mental health condition. We talk about reducing isolation. That could be stigma related or illness related. So, for example, for those of us with mental illnesses, we might self-isolate when we're in a depressive episode, and we'll talk about ways that you can do that less. We talk a ton about relationships and how to handle them. And then more just in general, we give people support and validation for what they're thinking and feeling and experiencing.
Wow, that's great. That's a lot. And your connections group is very well attended. Both of
Yes.
them are.
Yes.
And this might be a good place to announce that you're going to be starting a new one, March
March 3rd.
3rd.
So right now we run a connection group on Mondays and Saturdays. Both of those groups are from 4 to 5:30. On March 3rd, we're going to start a Wednesday group, and that will be from 6 to 7:30. So we're hoping that we'll be able to serve more people and maybe take a little of the attendance pressure off of the Monday and Saturday groups, because they're very, very well attended. And it might be nice to spread that attendance out just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that problem.
Right. And so if you have more groups, you can have a little bit fewer numbers of people in it, you can have more time for each person to.
Exactly.
And what about people, I mean, I'm going to throw this question out to all of you. What about people who come and it's really a bad time for them and they really don't want to talk, or they can't muster up the courage to talk? What do you do then?
Well, in connection, if somebody is like really in a bad place and they're not sure they want to talk, we kind of have to take the temperature of the room there. Even if they say they don't want time, what we'll do is say, we'd really like to get more, information and get to know you just a little bit better. Can we call on you and see how you're doing, see what you're about, see how we can help you? And a lot of times people they'll open up to that. They just kind of need to be given the space and maybe a gentle push. But if somebody is just really not capable of engaging, then we will just give them the space to sit and listen. Hearing other people's stories and hearing other people's struggles, that in and of itself is pretty healing. And sometimes people just kind of want to sit there and soak it in. And to us, that's perfectly acceptable as well. Mm-hmm. We try to meet the person where they're at.
I would say the same in the family group. We do acknowledge for newcomers how brave it is to come to their first meeting. Quite honestly, there's a lot of stigma around mental illness, and a lot of family members hold a lot of guilt that they are causing or contributing to a bad situation. And when you go to a meeting, what you're also saying is, I am starting my path to accepting this instead of just deny. And that takes an incredible amount of courage. We're totally cool with people saying, I pass, or I'm too emotional right now to talk about it. And that's totally fine. I think there's a lot of comfort to be found just to hearing other people talk about some of the hot button stuff that maybe you've been too scared to talk about. And they're more than welcome to sit in. So
one of the things I have noticed in talking to different groups about mental health is a bit of a curiosity, and in some instances, almost a reluctance to accept that peer support might be a good alternative to professional help. And so this next question, I think, is really kind of at the crux of what we wanted to make sure that all of us who are here tonight, come away with understanding. And that is, why do you think peer support groups help people? And in terms of being something other than what they can get from their mental health professional provider. So I'm going to open that up for anyone to jump in there too, to start.
Well, I think groups are really powerful. But I do want to say, I don't think that they are a substitute for professional help. And we don't ever say that. But I think groups are very powerful. One of the main reasons is something Alex already talked about, which is this is a mental health disease. Mental illnesses are very isolating, whether you're the person experiencing the mental illness or you're the person supporting somebody with a mental illness. There's so much stigma, guilt, and negative emotion. And so one of the most healing things is to participate in a group where people already know your language. It's not like you're speaking Latin anymore, and you don't have to say very much, and everybody's nodding their head, and you can just feel the love, and every muscle in your body relaxes because you know you're in the presence of your people. And that's very healing. So yeah.
I would second the thoughts about reducing stigma. For people who are living with a mental illness, we also, in addition to there just being stigma in society, we carry a lot of self-stigma. We judge ourselves very harshly sometimes for having a mental health condition. And we judge ourselves for how we behave when we're symptomatic, because we know that, I mean, it's tough for us to go through, and we know it's tough on our families. We're aware of that. And it's really healing to know that you're not the only person who's had difficulties. You're not the only person who's acted in some way where you're like, at the end of it, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And it's one of the places you can go where we won't judge you for how you acted when you were symptomatic. We will talk as appropriate about taking responsibility for our own actions, but we'll never judge somebody for how they behaved when they were symptomatic. And I think that's just, you know, having gone through that myself, I think that's really healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think one of the things that's so helpful about a support group, actually either the grief group or family support group, probably any support group, is that you go to a place where whatever you're going through, it's normal for us. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
We can say, yeah, that's normal. That happens in our families. And that's just a relief, because often if we bring up something that's happened within our families to other people, they're shocked or horrified or don't know what to say. And there's that moment where you realize, oh, I just shouldn't have talked about that because it's not helpful for this other person and they can't really relate to it well. And then I think sometimes we just need a witness. You know, we've been through something that's been really hard, and we just need to talk about it. And here we have a bunch of people who are willing to listen. And when it comes out of our mouth, then we know it in a different way because we've talked about it. And the other thing is, I see a lot of families coming in who they'll kind of say like, well, here's my situation, and you know, where am I? What is this? Where, you know, it's almost like we're in a foreign country. And we'll say, they'll say, well, okay, here's the situation. And we'll say, you're doing good. That's great. You know, you're doing everything right. And it's just like, oh, I didn't know that, you know? So yeah, it's sort of like you're able to get a perspective on your situation. And yeah, you suddenly you're able to place yourself in this is where our family is. So maybe you're right at the beginning, or maybe you've been handling this really well, but you're in the middle still, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's helpful. And then sometimes you just want to kind of know what the future is going to look like. Sometimes you are right at the beginning of the illness. And it's so helpful to come to a support group and see people who've, you know, they've been through this and their loved one has recovered. And you need to know that, oh, there is, what does it look like? Or maybe they've only recovered so much, but they're happy and they're living a good life. And you need to know that's what's coming as the person comes to accept their illness and get the treatment that they need. And I think we provide comfort just by, again, being there for each other. Mm-hmm. And another thing for families is to help us identify our role. You know, what are we supposed to do? You know, we feel helpless. Usually that's it. We want to do something, but we know that we can't fix that person. So what can we do? And by seeing what other families are doing, it gives us some ideas. Oftentimes we discover that the thing we can do the best is just be the best mother or father or aunt that we can be. You know, that's love that person. That's really what's needed. Also naming, you know, sometimes we just want to know the name of it. Here, what is this? You know, they tell me that my child has this diagnosis. What does that mean? And then I think one thing we really learn from each other is patience. You know, the progress is made slowly. The reason we know there's progress is because there's a little improvement. And that's something that we all need to learn, because of course we want it fixed, and we want it fixed right now. But that's not the way mental illness improves. It's step by step. And we just all that. We just give hope. Our real goal is be with each other and give each other hope.
I think too, at least for our group, there are some frustrations and emotions that are not appropriate to express in front of our loved one that has a mental illness, because our group is a safe place to say those things and know that the others in the group can hold your pain for you, and that there's nothing evil about you because you're feeling some of those things. Again, normalizing, as Jan said. I also think these illnesses are cyclical, and so there's so much of like, you think you got it licked, and then you're back at the beginning again. And so we have newcomers and we have old timers and everything in between, and we can be anywhere on that spectrum at any time. And so the meeting has a place for everyone, and everyone is showing the ones behind them, you know, what's coming, and others are reminding you of where you were. And yeah, so it's an incredibly a lot of growth and support and love.
One thing that we talk about in the grief group, and that one time I wish I had spoken up more about this, is that sometimes people who have suffered suicide in their family don't realize, number one, how common suicide is. It is. They may feel they're so alone. This only happened to us. What did we do wrong? What happened? And suicide it's just an amazingly common thing that happens. And if the more we can do to help them overcome guilt about that is, you know, sometimes that's just the choice that a person has made, and through no fault of anyone else. And so that's one of the things that we talk about that sort of relieves people of feeling worse than they needed to, and that they're not alone.
Right.
Go ahead, Alex.
I just wanted to say, kind of in closing, one of the things that I really like about the peer support model for those of us with mental illnesses is that it kind of helps us take our power back. You know, having a mental illness is stigmatized. We're second-class citizens. But everybody in that group is an equal. We're the experts in our own situations. And I really feel like it helps us to kind of stand up straighter, take back some power, reduce stigma, and it works out beautifully.
I love that. That's sort of a great closing remark.
Yeah.
because now we'd really like to open it up to the people who are with us tonight. Any questions or comments? And so please, now is the time to type things into the chat box, and I will be facilitating, monitoring those questions or comments with our panelists tonight. We were going to ask you to type in, is there anything preventing you from going to a support group? And I still want to put that out there, even though the majority of you who are with us tonight have been to support groups, but maybe for those of you who haven't, is there something that's preventing you from going? And even those who have gone to a support group, maybe you have some information that you'd like to share about, you know, how you got the courage, or what it was that, if you were reluctant, how you overcame that. So please start typing your questions or comments, and I'm going to check the chat function right now. We're getting a lot of hellos and yes, we agree with that. And
We have Q&A too. I see 2 Q&As.
Q&A. Okay, so to Alex,
Yes.
how are participants from other states and another country finding out about NAMI CCNS connections?
We would love to know the answer to that. Truly, we would love to know the answer to that. Somebody is working some search engine magic. I had a couple of friends from out of state at one point try to find our group without using NAMI CCNS or NAMI Cook County North Suburban. And we were landing on the first page of results. So I don't know how it happened, but we love it. We do get some recommendations.
And I do know that we have some terrific social media people who know how to optimize the search engine so that we do pop up early on in searches. So that might be part of it.
Yeah.
Another question, how do I become an advocate and facilitator for peer support groups? So if anyone wants to speak to how one can become a facilitator, that would be a good thing to talk about.
Well, I would be glad to speak to that. Anyone, just start attending a support group and then mention it to the support group facilitator that you're interested. Usually people start out by being members and then slowly move into getting training. And NAMI does offer periodic training, and you're given a really good preparation for leading the support groups. And right, we don't just throw you out there to lead it without training. And yeah, you just naturally start taking on the responsibility as you grow in experience.
One person is asking, Alex, where does your group meet? And could you tell when again?
Yes. So right now, everything is online. And I'm not sure when we're going back to in person. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question. Right now, we're running a Monday group and a Saturday group, and they're both from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Same Zoom ID each day. And then starting in March, we're also going to have a Wednesday 6 to 7:30 group. And we're hoping, even when things do go back to in person, to keep at least one online support group, because people are really liking it.
And so you can pick up that link on the website?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, our website has information on all of the support groups that you've heard about tonight. And the website is www.namiccns.org. Another question, well, I guess it's the same question. Where is Alex's group located? From someone else asking the same question.
Yeah.
Alex, for your group, are the individuals required to be in therapy and taking medication? If not, why not?
No, we don't require that. You know, everybody's journey through treatment it's very individual. So we don't require that you participate in any sort of formal treatment. I would say that most of us do. Just about everybody that's come through our group is either in therapy, taking medication, or both. And we do spend some time talking about how things are going in treatment. How's your medication? Are you managing the side effects? And although my co-facilitator and I don't try to be too directive, if somebody is saying, you know, I'm thinking about going off my medication, we will have a discussion about that, about, you know, why maybe you don't want to do that, and say, you should probably talk to your psychiatrist about this. You should probably talk to your therapist about this, so that people know that, you know, treatment is a good thing to engage in, and that if you're thinking about dropping out or not taking your medication, really think about what that's going to do for you, and then talk with an expert. That being said, some people basically use our support group as their only avenue of mental health support, and we accept that as well.
Great. All right. How can we provide constructive feedback to the group leaders?
Oh, we
You
would,
could tell us.
yeah, we would love to have it. We would love to have it.
Yeah.
And you could, if you can't, if you feel like it's something that's bothering you, or you feel you're too embarrassed to tell the support group leader, you can always call Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if Christine wants to. Yeah. But we don't know. We anything you can tell us, good or bad, we are so grateful for the feedback, because we want to do what works for you.
I agree. There's no such thing as bad feedback. So, I mean, and bring it on, baby. I want to hear everything that somebody has to say, because it's all very relevant. So, yeah.
We deliberately leave some time before and after the group where people can come, and especially after, people can come to us kind of in private and give us feedback or talk about their concerns, or, you know, occasionally give us compliments. We'll take that too. And we have had people use that option. They'll stay after for 5, 10, 15 minutes and give us some feedback on how things are going or what they might like to have different. And we're very, very open to that.
I love that. So you leave the meeting room, the virtual meeting room open, and so that people can, that's great.
Yeah, we give usually about 15 minutes or so, and people can stay after.
Awesome. Okay. Good tip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's another question. Jan or Tina, do you have a grief and loss group online?
It's online Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock. You can find the link. The link will be on the website.
And I think once you go the first time and offer your email contact, then I think Jan usually reaches out to people and invites them on a regular basis, just to remind people it's, you know, we're meeting again tomorrow kind of thing. Right, Jan? Yeah.
Every Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Saturday.
We do the same thing. So if you come to our meeting, we ask you to put your email, if you want to, in the chat, and then we send the link out every Friday night so that it's fresh in your email list for Saturday morning.
Yeah, so you don't have to hunt for it. Another question, do you think a peer should attend a family NAMI group to know translation between us?
So our family group is specifically for family members. And so I don't think it's a good idea unless that the people who come to our group are just family members supporting loved ones with mental illness. And so to keep it a safe place for family members, that's the only criteria.
Yeah. It's the same for Connection. We want it to be a safe place for people to share their experiences. And if we get a family member, and we do sometimes get a family member coming in hoping to get some resources for their family member, and we send them directly to you.
Yeah. Same.
Here's another question. I am a 74-year-old mother of a 47-year-old divorced son and 13-year-old daughter diagnosed with chronic depression and anxiety after 40.
Oh,
Had crisis in November of 2019. Since then, separated, divorced, child custody, child support, COVID, and finally job loss in December.
oh,
Until then, we parents had no clue, as he has lived in another state the last 4 years. This has been a difficult year. He has had a job, fortunately was able to work out of his home until December 31st, 20. Have not been able to get into a family to family in this area or mine. Daughter in Winnetka sent me your info, son needs support group also. Well, you can, let me just comment about the family to family class. We have one running right now, but it's too late to join it because you have to join the first class. But we will be running one again after this one. We hope to run at least 4 a year, so quarterly. We haven't chosen a date yet. That will depend on the availability of our teachers, but we will be putting it on our website. So, and you can check back with us. You can send an email to admin@NAMI. You can call our office number and we will get your information and we can let you know when the next group is going to start. And then about your son needing a support group, does someone else want to comment on that? Alex?
If your son is living with a mental health condition and needs support, Connection is open, and we would be very, very welcoming to him.
and while you're waiting for the family to family class, come on down to the family support group on Saturday mornings. We'd love to have you too.
How about a crisis support group when the crisis is ongoing to give step-by-step help when in crisis? Is that overkill or do you think it would be useful?
That's a tough one because in a support group, it's rare that the support group is so small that we can hear the whole story out. And plus the other thing is that we are peers, not professionals. So even if our experience is similar to yours, it's not exactly the same. And we don't want to give professional advice. We usually, if we think that if you bring us a problem that we know we're not qualified to make those decisions, we will tell you we would go to professionals with that. Most of us do go to professionals when we have to make decisions involving our families and our loved ones, just because the support group, it's valuable, but it's different, but it doesn't give advice. That's not exactly what we do. So yeah, family to family is educational and some support too, really great support. And the family support groups and the other support groups are we're here for you. We can listen, we can tell you what happened in our situation that was similar, but we can't actually guide you step by step. That's a professional.
But we do have, in the family and family course, we do talk about how to, crisis.
How to navigate a crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that person is not taking family, they should definitely do it.
Yeah.
For Connection, if somebody shows up and they check in and then it becomes obvious that they're in some sort of crisis, of course we handle that in the moment. One of the disclaimers that we give when we start the group out is that NAMI is not a crisis organization. We provide the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and also for the chat function and for the NAMI national number. And if anybody is in need of more crisis resources, we have them just message one of us and we can either send them to our wonderful Wormline coordinator or we can give them resources ourselves.
And again, I think something that's hard for a lot of people to hear is these are not issues that have solutions. They are managed. Mm-hmm. They're chronic diseases that are managed. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, come in, I know I did, thinking, oh, you're going to give me the recipe to fix my guy, and then my problems are going to be over. And that's not quite how this works.
No.
Sorry, Charlie.
Wish it were that easy.
Yeah, exactly.
So are there any other questions? Someone has asked for the link for the grief and loss group. So I think we're gonna have to get back to you on that. Does anybody have it? I could put it in the chat box if you have it.
I don't.
Okay. You're on mute, Tina.
I don't, you know what? Does that person want it emailed to them? Or do they want us to convey the
Yeah,
link?
I saw that. I saw Polly wanted she wanted the link, so I will send it. Polly, you sent your email in the chat, and I will send it to you.
Oh, okay.
Did you copy her email down, Jan?
Yes.
Okay.
If yes. Okay.
Okay. All right, great. All right. Are there any other questions? And let me just say this. We didn't plan on this, but I'm going to say, since this has been a really great conversation, do our panelists want to ask a question of our guests tonight? Is there something you'd like to ask the people who have joined us tonight, and they can type their answer in the chat function? Or you don't have to. I'm just putting it out there.
Oh, let's see. Did we get an answer to the question as to if someone is reluctant to come to a support group or to family, why that might be? What is your reluctance? What's your,
Yeah.
why are you reluctant?
Is there something preventing?
Yeah, right.
Is there something preventing you from going to a support group? If there's guests that are still with us who haven't gone. We have another question here. Let me just look at it. Have any of you lost someone due to mental illness?
Despite working with and knowing many people with mental illnesses, I have been so fortunate not to lose anyone. And I am grateful every day for that. I know that I'm fortunate.
Someone typed the answer to the question about reluctance to, or something preventing you from going, and they said my reluctance at first was denial.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I have a question. What could we do to make your entrance into one of our support groups easier and more welcoming?
That's a good one. All right.
Yeah.
Type away, guests.
I would say one of the gifts of COVID too has been that we've gone online. And so it's so much easier to attend a group because you don't have to live in the same neighborhood that the group is in.
Longer check-in, more day-by-day times.
Mm-hmm. And, we do what we can with the check-in. I wish that we could give everybody as long as they wanted to check in. The model that we're expected to follow is a 1 to 2 minute check-in, which is why we run it that way. It's because it's the evidence-based model. So it can be a little rough to work with it your first or second time, but people get into the flow of it.
Yeah, we do try to keep with the NAMI model.
Mm-hmm.
as best as we can. Family to family class not available. Son just was not ready yet. Denial is big. He does have a therapist and communicates well with her, but I feel he desperately needs a support group.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Alex's group.
That would be my group, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even if somebody doesn't want to stay for the whole group, if they would like to check in 15 minutes beforehand and just have a conversation with either me or my co-facilitator, we're there exactly for that. You know, if they feel like maybe they'd like to get their feet wet a little bit, but they're not even ready to listen, come and talk to us about it.
I struggle with finding daily meetings. Do you think that is a plus or a minus to go daily?
Half of the people in my support group have a daily meeting that they go to. And one of our support group members has kindly put together a list of meetings held every day of the week, where they are, and the ID number. So we have like a vetted list of places where people can go.
That's lovely.
It's so
Are
great.
Are they all NAMI or are
They're
some
all NAMI.
DBSA?
Mhm. No, they're all NAMI. All NAMI.
Okay, interesting.
Because most of ours are in the evening, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's some daytime meetings and there's some evening meetings.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to find an AA meeting, there's one any place, anytime. And so I'd like to see NAMI be as accessible. It would be great.
We just need to find more facilitators. So those of you who are with us tonight, go to a group, see if you like it, see if you want to become a facilitator. We are getting close to our ending time, so I want to just say thank you to our panelists for a wonderful conversation, Tina, Alex, Jan, and Jennifer. And also thank you to our guests for making this such an interesting discussion. Without your questions, we would have found it a little less interesting for us.
Yeah.
NAMI CCNS has a wealth of mental health resources besides the groups you heard about tonight. And they are on our website. And I'm going to say again, www.namiccns.org. We have 2 programs next month. February 10, we have a program that is called Planning for Recovery. And this is based on the Wellness Recovery Action Plan that is a copyrighted program. It's a self-designed, it is a self-designed prevention and wellness process that anyone can use to get well, stay well, and make their life the way they want it to be. So we're going to be talking about that on February 10. February 24, we have 2 speakers, Jessica Leving and Dr. Dustin Siegel, and they will be talking about parenting the other child, meaning providing support for siblings of children with disabilities. These are especially difficult times. We all know that. And so I'm going to be posting now the National Suicide Prevention number in the chat box. Please copy it in your phones or a notepad. You never know when you might use it. So I'm going to do that right now. Chat box. Okay. I guess I have to close the Q&A. Chat box. All right, here we go. All right, there is the number for Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There is a short survey of 4 questions when this webinar closes. So I'm going to ask you to please take a moment to provide us with feedback. We like to know what you think of our programs. It helps us bring you the programs that you are most interested in. So please give us some feedback. Thank you all again. Stay well, be safe, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. It was great to have you.
Thank you all for coming. Christine, thank you for hosting.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you,
Christine.
Yes,
Christine.
very nice.
You are welcome. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.